Welcome to another episode of the AsOne Leadership Podcast. My name's Luke Williams and I'm the lead pastor of Follow Baptist Church. And it's a real privilege to be able to bring these sessions to you, and hopefully today's content will be really helpful. Today's guest is Owen Prout. Welcome, Owen.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Great to have Owen. For those that don't know Owen, he's been the senior pastor of St Luke's in Cockatoo for the last 12 or 13 years, something like that. But he finished up late last year, and has now taken a role at Youth Dimension. So our last episode with Lindsay Tunbridge, he's the boss at YD. He's the big boss that
he is. He's
the
my
whips.
boss, yep.
And Owen's there as...
I'm the director of outreach, so anything that we're thinking about missionally, that's where I sit in that space there.
Yeah, and Owen and I have got a history. When I was growing up, when I was born, actually, my first pastor ever was Owen's dad, Ross. And so growing up in youth group and all of that, Owen was one of those guys a little bit ahead of me that I would look up to, and, you know, youth leader and involved in Boys Brigade and things like that. And so last year he's come to follow, and so he's part of our church now, and it's just so good to reconnect. And I just love the work that Youth Dimension's doing and the stuff that Owen's involved in. So we're going to unpack some of that today and talk through it. So Lindsay told us a little bit about YD last time.
Yep.
Do you want to just give us the overview again of what Youth Dimension is and the main functions of it?
Yeah, I think the way I think about Youth Dimension is it plays a support role to the local church. So we're there to encourage, to barrack for, to equip the church in anything to do with mission, particularly youth mission. Obviously, it's Youth Dimension. Yep. We've got a real heart for seeing young people and young adults obviously connect with Christ, come to know Jesus himself, but also then learn what discipleship's about and living that out. Now, that's a function of the church. So it's not YD's role to come in and replace that, but to help the church. And so there are various ways we do that. We encourage and equip churches to get involved with local schools, which I'll talk a bit about during this podcast. Summer missions, young adults. We've got a big wellbeing focus, which if you've tuned into the last podcast, you'll hear more about that with Lindsay. We've got an internship program. So this is a ministry training program particularly focused on evangelism. So people sort of who've left school up into their mid-20s, that kind of age range where they're starting to think about maybe vocational ministry is for me. Those type of people can come and jog along with us for a year and find out a bit about what ministry is like. So that, look, they're the main things that we do. In the internship department too, we've got a Gravitate department, which is the vet subject that picks up some of the kids in all different schools. They can be homeschooled right through to secular schools, government schools, into Christian schools, and really provides some base level theological reflection and training. So, yeah, Year 11 and 12 students participate in that as well. So, look, lots of stuff. Great place to be involved with.
Yeah, really good range all the way from primary school. You're starting to develop some stuff there through to, you know, the older VCE and even young adults on missions and stuff like that. So in the next podcast, we'll talk a little bit about the summer mission programs.
Right.
And we'll focus more a little bit on the schools here. And one thing I love about YD is that you help churches get into spaces that perhaps they wouldn't be able to get into, and that's places like schools and you know, beach towns and stuff like that. And I think that's where you really help develop evangelism and some of those things when people from a local church, just like Follow, for example, get involved in some of those programs. It's actually very formative, and it helps them to, you know, become better at evangelism and engaging and community outreach. And that's where I think YD and churches go hand in hand really well. And yeah, I've had a lot to do with YD over the years, and they do some great stuff. So one of the big places for you is schools.
Yep.
And I think the school kind of system has become a changing mission field in recent times, and particularly in Victoria. When we were younger, you know, what do you call it? Religious instruction in schools was something that everyone kind of did. Then they changed it to opt-in, and a lot of schools now obviously have just completely removed religious instruction. There's been a stripping back of chaplaincy and school programs offered by faith-based organisations, and it's moved more to, you know, research-based and government-based and all that sort of stuff. And so I think some people would say, well, the days of school involvement in churches is pretty much over. And yet YD is bucking the trend and looking to re-engage in local schools in an even bigger way. So why is it that that's important for Youth Dimension?
I think one of the things that grieved me while I was pastoring up at St Luke's was exactly what you've described, where schools were, in fact, our school where I was actively lobbying to have the RI system removed, not just in their own school, but across the state.
Yep.
So, some of the leadership at that school were very vocal about it, and yet quite friendly with us. So as a leadership team at the church, we had already developed a great relationship with the school. I ended up being school council president in that particular school, and yet there was this thing going on at the same time. And so in the end, before we got kicked out, I pulled us out. I said to the principal, listen, I feel like we're annoying to you in this place by doing this. Half the kids are in, half the kids are out. It's teachers are sick and tired of trying to figure out two different things while the RI person comes in. And so it was actually negatively impacting my relationship with the school as the pastor in that place.
Yep.
So that, for me, I bring that baggage with me, if you like, into YD, that experience, plus a number of other ones in the area that I was ministering. And so there's this mass exodus, if you like, from schools that all of us churches did. But then we decided, no, we don't want to be out of the school. We're just going to take that out of the school because obviously culturally this is a big shift here and it's no good. So we replaced it with a whole bunch of other things, and we worked with the school on lots of things, including volunteer reading programs, making sure chaplaincy was solid, running after-school programs that lots and lots of kids engaged with. So we didn't just say, oh, we're out of the school and sort of go, okay, we better find something else to do. We still did kids ministry, outreach kids ministry. And I think that's what my next chapter of my ministry is about, is to say to churches, you know what, just because you can't do RI the way that you did it doesn't mean you have to be out of the school. In fact, what we're finding now, and this is anecdotal, I haven't done research on this, but as I talk to different principals and people in the system, they're actually quite sad that the volunteer rate in their schools has dropped.
Yep.
Now, we already know, because of the changing nature of the workforce and lots more people, men and women, in the workforce all the time, the volunteer rates for schools have dropped anyway. And then RI goes out a few years ago, and then access to church volunteers just dropped. And so what we're saying is, hang on, church, they actually do still want you in there.
Yep.
They might not want you in the way that we would love to be able to tell them David and Goliath, and we want to tell them about Adam and Eve, and we want to talk to them about Jesus at Easter time and all that sort of stuff. They're telling us they don't want that. We might have a different view about what they need, and that's okay.
Yep.
But what they're missing is us, because you know what? By and large, Christians are pretty nice people. They're very positive people to have around your school.
Yep.
All the structures are pretty good now about working with children's and safety, child safety and all that sort of stuff. So there's a good level of structural trust that can be built now pretty quickly. So I guess I'm just saying, come on, guys, let's get back in there.
Yep.
Let's think about how we can do that.
And a lot of Christians, they have that heart to serve too. So that's straight away an advantage. Schools want people that are there to serve and to make a difference. So one of the things I was going to ask you about is, I was on a call with you recently and had a number of pastors and different people on it. And one of the pastors basically said, well, I'd like to be in school, but I don't know how to get in there. And we've both had a bit of experience with that. And so I think you probably touched on some of that answer already. But what would you say to someone who's asking that question?
Well, I think the best thing to do in that situation is to go, well, what's already happening? So in some schools, there's already a chaplain. Yeah. So your first port of call is to do nothing until you've connected with that person, introduced yourself, make sure that you're not doing anything or saying anything to the principal that the chaplain isn't aware of. God has put that person in that place for a reason, and so you need to make sure you work with them. Lots of schools have already got brekkie programs going. Lots of schools have got different places where you can join in with what's already happening. So I would say, do your homework, find out who's doing what, find out if there are other churches involved. There's nothing worse than 4 churches from the area all bombarding the school, not having talked to each other either.
Yep.
So do your homework. ring up the local churches. Hey, I'm thinking about this in the school, and they might say to you, already doing something there. Oh, well, do you mind if I have a couple of volunteers join with you? We're talking about a whole lot of things coming out of COVID, but presenting a united front and actually being united as Christians is going to be really important. So that's the first thing. Do find out what's already going on and join in with that. The other thing is that if there's nothing really happening, and I was thinking quite a lot about this morning as I was pondering what we're going to talk about, well, how would a church cold call a school? Like, it's been 4 or 5 years since we've been out of schools. That's a really hard thing to do. And that's where YD fits in. You can get us involved, and we can set up a time to go and see the principal, and that's where some of the things that we are offering to schools through YD, we don't do anything without the local church's involvement. So at the moment, we have different things that can bridge the gap. And a lot of that is to do with the wellbeing, the evidence-based wellbeing material that we're developing at the moment. And that's very attractive to schools. We're trialling some of that stuff already and seeing how that rolls out. But already we're getting, this is fantastic stuff. So our job as at YD is to join with you to say, here we have something that is going to add value to your school community, and we're going to bring some volunteers in, and it's not going to cost you anything.
Yep. And I can attest to this. It's not just a theory, because I've been in one of those meetings with you and Lindsay. The three of us went to meet with the wellbeing team at a local school that we already got relationship with, and we were looking to reconnect after COVID, because we've been out of the school, obviously, for obvious reasons in the last couple of years, by and large. And so we're looking to reconnect. They're keen to have us back in there. And usually I would go and meet with people there, but I took Owen and his boss, Lindsay, and it was just really great I've got the relationship there, so we reconnect that way, and we've been doing a breakfast club and a bit of mentoring. But to have you guys there was really helpful as well, because you talk about, well, these are some of the programs we could offer. Lunchtime program where you're connecting with year 7 to 9s, and for kids that are lonely or isolated in the school ground, it's a place of fun. There's games, there's a wellbeing talk that will help them with resilience or respect, or a lot of those things that schools are looking for. And then Lindsay comes in and says, when we offer this other stuff around, genuine research, we can help you identify, what are the strengths and weaknesses in particular year levels, how's their mental health going, what can you do to help, boost to some of that. And so the three of us there, I just felt like it was one of the best meetings I've ever been involved in. And it felt like God was in the room with us, which obviously he was. And he was working that conversation, and the school just couldn't get enough. It was like, yes, we'd love that. Because I think a lot of schools feel overwhelmed.
They do.
And the mental health issues we've become more aware of them in recent times. And, working as a chaplain in a school, I've seen that so many kids are struggling with family problems, intellectual problems, whatever it may be. And they just don't have enough resource in school to be able to deal with that. So when you're offering free support in any of those areas, generally schools are like, yes, come and help us. So I think going in, the old way of doing it was, okay, we meet with the school and we say, well, these are the things we can offer. We'll do RI for you. And they're like, not interested. I think sometimes a good way is, how can we help? How can we serve? What are the things that you think you need help with? And then we'll consider how we could actually help you with that. And I think YD is really good at offering some of those options.
It's good. It's how can we help is the first, and joining in with the activities that you can and that you can raise a team to do. And then it's, okay, where are the gaps that we might, as a church and as YD coming in partnership with the church, where can we fill some of those gaps for you? And let's be honest, coming out of this pandemic, whenever that's going to happen, we keep getting told we're going to have the ripple effect of this. We'll still be in it till 2025, or there's all lots of numbers getting thrown around. Whatever it is, we do know that people will be struggling to reconnect. They're going to be, relationships are so different online than they are face to face. I was talking to a mother this morning whose daughter's gone back to school. Things were fine with her friends online. It's all fallen apart at school. So we're going to have all of these issues multiplied right across the state and the nation. So they're going to be looking for support. And so we want to provide really good, well-measured support through the church's and their volunteers. That's what we want to see happen.
Yeah, well, our son's been back at school for 2 days in primary school, and generally he's loved school and all that, but he's found it really hard to reconnect and, relational stuff and stuff that wasn't there before after such a long layoff. We had a life group meeting the other night for the first time, and it was really great to reconnect with people face to face. But I was completely stuffed after it. I was exhausted. A couple of hours of talking to all these different people and taking in different conversations. And we're adults. And so for kids in schools, with all the complexity and insecurity and relational stuff, whereas adults, we're kind of kind to each other, unless we're on social media, then everyone's nasty. But in face-to-face, we're kind with one another. But in schools, you take out that kindness. Kids often aren't kind. So I think there's going to be so much work to be done in schools, and I think schools will be really keen to have any additional support they can get. So I guess getting into schools is the first step, and some people go, yeah, we've reached the finish line, we're in the school. It's not the finish line, it's the starting line. And once you get in there, I guess it's really important with the way you conduct yourself if you want to remain in the school. And so when YD helps churches get into a school, what are some of the underlying values and aims that you have in that school community? Yeah,
picking up on something you said before, Luke, really, as Christians, this is not a new concept, but servanthood and humility. Not going in as, hey, I've got something to offer, I am the answer to all your needs. It's listening, so listening, serving, and being very thoughtful about what you do. The other big value that we have at YD is fun. Big part of it is just relax and be yourself and enjoy what you're doing, and that's what's really attractive to any community. Without that sense of playfulness and fun, and it kind of, well, who are you guys? And this is all a bit boring and all that sort of stuff. So that's actually how we train that into people. I don't know, other than just be yourself and just relax. So those are some of the underlying values in there. Now, of course, we are informed by our faith. Our faith in Christ is the absolute rock solid standpoint. This is where we start. This is why we do what we do. That is the thing that informs our actions, but it's important at that point to go, right, well, what words am I going to use? And to be thoughtful about that. So we have a value of actions backing our words without, and none of this is new, is it? This is all the sort of things that you would hope that anyone who's doing anything decent in the community would do. But if I'm going to say that I'm going to help out at Brekkie Club, then, the alarm goes off at 6 o'clock or 5 o'clock in the morning and you have to go to the supermarket and do this, and you think, oh, this is all too hard, and you just go ring the school, oh, I'm sick. But really you just know that you just can't be bothered. Those sort of things are not acceptable. If you say you're going to do something, then you do it. You make sure that it happens. Actions are very, very powerful. That underpins a lot of what we do.
Yeah, I think that's so true. I think you want every interaction you have with the kids, every interaction you have with the staff, and everyone involved in the school community, it needs to be a positive interaction where they go, wow, these people, there's something different about them. They're joyful. Yes, they're up at 5 o'clock coming for a breakfast club. Yes, they're cleaning up and rushing around and serving, but they're loving it. There's a joy about it. And it's like in any sort of ministry, I guess. If you come and you go, oh, I had to get up early and I wish I was still in bed, and you're storming around, you're better off doing nothing at all. Because it really wrecks what you're trying to achieve, and that is to serve, to build community, to express the love of Christ in practical ways. So I think, that's really important. And I love what you said about fun a moment ago, because kids, they sit in class all day. And most schools, you learn a certain way, you listen to the teacher, you do some exercises. The last thing you want to do is go in and run another program that just feels like another class, particularly if you're trying to get them in their lunchtime. They're not coming to anything unless it's fun and exciting and a place to belong. So I love that about YD, that it's kind of a bit larger than life in some of those programs and all that. So you and I are familiar with YD and the different programs we run, but people watching may only be hearing of YD for the first time, Youth Dimension. So tell us a little bit about a bit of a breakdown of some of the programs you offer in schools.
Yeah, so for a long time, probably since the mid-'80s, there's been a program called Student Focus, and all it is really a bunch of games. You might do 4 or 5 games that you get the write-up for, so we give you all the write-up and all of the equipment, and you run those games. And the idea is that a student comes in, they don't have to be part of the game, so they can watch it like a game show if they want to, or if they want to participate, they can. They put their hand up. There's no pressure there.
Yep.
And that actually releases the atmosphere really well, because, we've all been to youth nights or whatever, and there's the peer group, Luke, you're on, you're up, get Luke up. And Luke's had a really bad day. He's just had a fight with his parents. All he wants is just to watch and be quiet. And all of a sudden he's being forced by his peers to do something he doesn't want to do, and he sculls a bottle of Coke and he vomits everywhere. So it's not that style. Yep. It's very much, if you want to participate, you can. But it is going to be loud and fun. We actually, in our training, we train a session called Hype. Now, obviously everyone knows what Hype is, but not everyone can make that happen without being deliberately trained in it. So we'll train you in that, because if there's something happening, if there's some noise coming out of a classroom at lunchtime, there's curiosity going on.
Yep.
So it's a release. It is a place for kids who, wherever they're at in their life, in their school life, just to come in and relax and do whatever they want to do. But as part of that, there will be a talk. Now, traditionally, we were able to do some Bible teaching and some gospel messages in the schools. Those days are over, and that doesn't frighten us off at all. I think there was initially a bit of sadness about that, and I understand that. But I also know, like all of us who hold the Christian faith really closely to our hearts, we know that God's bigger than that the Holy Spirit can do what he wants to do through us and in us and by our example. And so the talks now are wellbeing based, so the evidence-based stuff, and I'll refer you back to the podcast with Lindsay for more information about how that all works. But this is the wellbeing material is stuff that the schools love. It is, we would say, secular friendly, but it's not. These are not secular principles. The things that we're teaching are principles that fit snugly into Scripture. These are good principles, but they're not overtly Christian.
Yep.
So we'll do that talk somewhere in the middle of that program, and then the bell goes and off they go. And they've had a great time. They've sculled a big M, and they're off they go, and they're happy. And so really, a lot of it is about building fun, a place of fun, and but also a place where they can hear something that they can apply to their life. It's also a place where, if you've got 4 or 5 volunteers, without being too kind of crass about it, and going in and having a sales pitch, it is okay to invite them to youth ministry.
Yep.
So that's really the call. We actually really annoy churches on this and say, well, where do you think the kids are? Well, they're in school. Well, get in there. Get in there. And then you can invite them back. Very powerful. Who are your Christian kids? If they're in the school there, get them to come along to the program. They do the inviting. There's a whole lot of things that we train you around, and things that are pretty intuitive anyway, really. Yep.
And I think, for kids that are interested, most parents are pretty happy for them to go to youth group on a Friday night, because they're not out getting alcohol on the streets, causing trouble, fighting, whatever. They're at a safe place where they have fun. It is a bit hype, and as adults we sort of buck back from hype, it's all hypey. But at that age, they love the big and the fun and the energetic, and so you really got to contextualise, don't you? And if that
you do,
attracts kids at a lunchtime, then I think that's a really important part of it. So, so you've got the student focus at lunchtime.
Yep.
Breakfast clubs as well.
Yes, we've got breakfast clubs, and really, there's lots of funding around breakfast clubs already at a state level. So lots of schools want them. Yep. They just don't necessarily have the volunteers. So we just say to churches, that's probably your best starting point. So lots of schools mightn't necessarily want the lunchtime program. That'll come in time. But brekkie clubs are a winner straight off the bat, because there are a number of children that do not get what they need nutritionally to get them through the day properly. Yep. And it affects their learning. There's all that research all around that. So that really is where I would encourage you to start. And again, YD can come with you to talk to a principal about that. Whatever you need, whatever help that anyone would need in a church, we're there. We'll provide that. As well as that, we are in development phase of a primary school program called Reboot. And that is, again, a lunchtime program. It doesn't really replace the old religious instruction because, again, we're picking up the wellbeing principles here.
Yep.
And we're packaging it a bit differently for primary school. So it's a little bit like a drop-in centre kind of vibe. So come in and get your hot chocolate or your icy pole in summer or whatever. And we're going to have a number of tables set up in a room with a volunteer from the church on each table and it's a bit like Brekkie Club. You know, have maybe Jenga on a table and on another table and just activity-based. But we're also going to put in some upfront games as well. So it's a bit of a hybrid of a whole lot of different things that we've done in school in the past. And so someone will get up and share a very quick thought spot around a wellbeing issue.
Yep.
The leader on the table will then, have some discussion questions that are age appropriate. And that'll all go for about 5 minutes, that part of it. And then it's just back to games and upfront games and a bit of fun and a bit of hype and a little gift on the way out, something like that, And so that's going to be trialled at the back end of this year and early next year. But we really sense that this is something that a lot of churches will enjoy and be able to do. Because there's something a bit scary about teenagers and doing teenage outreach in a school.
For sure.
But when you talk about primary school kids, you tend to be able to pick up a few more volunteers because they don't seem as scary.
Yeah,
I don't think teenagers are particularly scary. I just think they've got a few more layers on them. And you don't have to do much to scratch away and just get alongside them. But I think for some people it's a bit, this is a bit hard. So
yeah, it's a little daunting.
Yeah, and I understand that.
Yep. I think what I love about each of these programs is that it creates a safe space as well, because there is a percentage of kids that they dread lunchtime and recess because I don't know where to go, I don't have friends to hang out with, I might get picked on.
Yep.
And so if I can find a space I can go to and know that there's responsible adults there that seem to care about me and there's a bit of fun that goes with it, I'm going to go to that place, I'm going to be there. And I think that's really helpful for schools as well to help some of those kids that find life a bit more difficult, which is really good. So with your years of engagement with the young people, what do you think they really need at the core of who they are, and how can you invest in that space? How do these programs help with those sorts of things?
Yeah, look, there's a lot of ways that my brain goes when a question like that's asked. I think the thing that cuts through all of the stuff that we might say, teenagers are a bit different now than they used to be and all that. I think there's truth to all of those things, but when you boil it down, anything any human really wants to know is that they matter. And that we know from our faith background that we all matter to God, so much so that he was willing to send Jesus to come and die for us on the cross, and so that we can have this re-establishment of this unbelievable relationship with God. This is a great thing that we know that underpins it all, but that also then drives our human behaviour, and that is that we then are motivated to go and help someone else know that they matter. And for a bunch of reasons, people going through their teenage years really struggle with that.
Yep.
And it presents in all sorts of weird and wonderful ways. And I think each decade will present its own new version of that. And you can think about where kids were all a bit confused and what they did with that in the 70s and then in the 80s and then and now teenagers are always confused, and so they present a whole lot of things in that confusion. But underneath it all, you just look past all of that. None of that stuff really matters. What matters is them. And so when you have access as an adult, a caring adult, into a school community, whatever that looks like, whether you do a YD thing or you're a chaplain or you're doing Brekkie Club or whatever you're doing, if you're able to communicate through your actions and through some of your words that another human being is important, no matter how they present or what they're going through, that's the heartbeat.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's life-changing stuff.
Yep. And I think it's Christ-like, isn't it? That God loved us so much that he came and incarnated amongst us in the person of Jesus. And so he loved us so much that he came to us. And so we love people so much that we go to them.
Yes.
And so God didn't wait for us to come to him.
No.
We never would have.
Yep.
And if we just wait for people to come to us, which is, I guess, probably more of the Christendom model, where we put on a church service or a special speaker or something, and people flock to us. Well, those days are over. By and large, people aren't walking into our churches. They're not coming to us anymore. We're by and large seen as irrelevant or judgmental or hypocritical or whatever people say. And so I don't want anything to do with the church. And so the powerful stuff about this kind of work in schools is we're saying, no, we're not expecting you to come to us. We're going to you.
Yeah.
Now, that might mean that some of them come to us in the long run, and it creates another space for them to find relationship and connection and all that, which is ultimately what we'd love to see happen. But even if they don't, we're going to them. And I think that is life-changing because it communicates, well, we do matter. These people are not being paid to come in here. They're not on massive salaries. They're not doing it because the government's told them they must do it. They're doing it because they want to come to us and to serve, to hopefully make our life a little bit better and to connect. And I think we could probably all think of people in our lives growing up that did a similar thing for us. Can you think in your own life as a young person, having people in your life that were role models or youth leaders or whatever that kind of modelled that?
Yeah, I feel so blessed in this area of my life to have had a number of people that spring to mind.
Yep.
I think of a guy who I still text. His team just won the premiership, Melbourne Footy Club. Good old Foxy, who's a guy that lots of people know. He's a teacher at Ivanhoe and done some chaplaincy there. But this guy's invested his life into the lives of others. So I hold him in great regard, and I feel very blessed that he was part of my journey. Your dad, Boys Brigade captain, I have great memories of the input that he had in my life as a young man, and learning about what being a good young man is all about. And that's quite a robust thing, between being able to have a good time and a laugh and, go out and bush bashing and all that sort of stuff, but also to be able to share deeply spiritual and emotional things. These are great memories, and I've got these, and there are others. Another couple, Andrew and Linda Boutros. I could name off so many, and then eventually, in my first stint at Youth Dimension, I had a great mentor in Rob Coyle as a young man as well. Let alone my own family. So these people, particularly the ones that are outside your family, because you kind of expect good things from your parents, and you don't always get it, do you? You don't.
No, for sure.
But it's these others that don't have to, but they make you feel like you matter, and it just sets you off on a path that, so you could call it discipleship, and some of that was more formal than others. Out of those names I've mentioned, there are many others as well. There's some formal and informal moments in there. But, I sit here today having kept on in the faith and kept on in my ministry over years because of those people. Yeah. Absolutely no doubt about it.
Yep.
Now, that's not the whole picture, of course. You never want to leave God out of that picture. I think we have an understanding that God sits on top of all of that, but these people are critical. And that's the opportunity that we have in church, not just with our own community. It can become a bit of an echo chamber. We can sort of just stay in that space. But you and I and others can be impacting on others that we don't even know by getting out of our own comfort zone.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I think back to my early years as well, and Foxy, we have that in common. Like Foxy, I would see I don't see Foxy much these days. We catch up from time to time. He visits church occasionally and stuff like that. But he would be one of the most influential people in my life as a youth group leader when I was young. And another guy called Matt Jackson. And both of those guys are guys that really invested in my life in some of those formative years. Yep. And I didn't deserve it a lot of the time. I was acting like a jerk. I wasn't really committing, all that sort of stuff, maybe disrespectful at times, and yet they just kept showing up, whether it's for a Bible study, whether it's to go for a kick of the footy after church, whatever it may be. We used to sing on Sundays after Sunday services, and we used to go to the Keg, or McDonald's, and just those times of just investing in my life in a really formative time. Yeah. And to be honest, like, if you're watching this, Foxy, we love you, but he was the most disorganised youth leader you'd ever have, and Jack, it wasn't much better. But they just loved you, and that was was what I remember. And I can't really remember the youth programs. I remember some key things we did, but by and large, the weekly rhythm, I don't really remember. But what I do remember is that those guys just kept showing up over and over and over again.
Yep.
And I remember Foxy, he was the master at driving a manual car and eating a Big Mac meal at the same time.
Unbelievable.
So he'd be resting something under here and be...
Yep.
And all the OH&S stuff out the window.
Yep.
His back seat was like the Macca's bin overflowing. But, it was just, for me as a young guy, just knowing there was people ahead of me that actually genuinely cared, and they didn't have to, but they chose to. It was really significant.
Yep, it's that gift of time. Again, it's a well-worn path. This isn't probably the first podcast you've listened to and someone said that. But for whatever reason, it doesn't seem to compute with all of us. We like to put time into selfish pursuit a lot of the time. Guys like Foxy, it didn't even occur to them really to do things for themselves. It was investment in others, and it's unforgettable. It is unforgettable to have had someone like that or others do exactly the same thing when they could have been doing whatever. I'm sure that Foxy probably would have enjoyed far more sport watching. He loves his sport and all the rest of it. No, it was into us guys. It was amazing.
Yeah, he's one of those legends where everywhere you go in Melbourne, people know Foxy because
because of that.
Not just one or two people. He just has this ability to invest in a really wide range of people, which is a great legacy to have, I think. Really cool. And I think I found a few years ago I was involved in a primary school program where we'd go in each week and mentor a kid one-on-one, and then we'd do some group activities together to celebrate and stuff like that. But I felt even in those moments that I was becoming a person like that for the people in the school. So it wasn't a youth group setting in this case, but it was actually a school setting. They didn't have a faith background at all, but a lot of these kids were doing it tough. Didn't have a great family life, were struggling to fit in at school, and I just knew that the hour I'd spend each week in there, with that kid, just playing games, going for a walk, kicking the footy, whatever it may be, it was one of the highlights of their week because they felt they were important. Yeah. They felt someone cared.
Yep.
And so going in to a school, it's not just, we do some programs in schools because that's what we do. No, there's precious kids in there that may not have any role models in life. It may have had the opposite. And we go in there and just show them that we care. I think it's a really powerful thing.
It is. It's the most powerful thing. And I don't have any particular fuss about whether or not people do YD programs. I couldn't care less. If you can do a Foxy and just get in there and be with young people, great, do it.
Yeah, for sure. So you've obviously done years of working in schools, and you're at Youth Dimension before you went to St Luke's, and probably still involved in YD through that period, but now coming back in an intense role. And so in all of those years of being in schools, can you think of any kind of transformational stories that you've seen happen for this sort of ministry?
When I think about that, there's a bunch of little faces that come to my mind. There are kids during my time at St Luke's, but I actually cast my mind right back to the really early days at Youth Dimension. So I was there, mid-90s, did some training there and then through. And actually, there's a fella who did his internship the year after I was in second year internship when he was going through first year internship at YD. There's a guy called Steve Peach. And he is a remarkable guy because he was just invited to a lunchtime program, student focus, in the early 90s at some stage, probably late 80s, early 90s. And he was invited by his mate Paul Crothers, who happens to now be down at New Peninsula Baptist. He's the senior pastor down there.
Yep.
So those two are mates. Paul invites him to student focus. He loves it. There was a really great leader there who, a bit of a Foxy kind of guy, got alongside those guys, brought him in. And then Steve ended up coming to youth and he made a commitment to Christ and he's ended up in vocational ministry. He's a fantastic guy. You meet Steve, you never forget him. He's just one heck of a funny guy as much as anything else. He's just great to be around. But his faith is so deep, and he's now senior pastor at Southport Church of Christ, a big Church of Christ up there on the Gold Coast. Here's a guy who was bumbling along in life as a little year 7, quite a popular kid, but his destiny completely changed by that one invite from that other kid, and then having something in the school. And I keep thinking to myself, well, if we're not there, and this is why I want churches back in there, if we're not there, then we don't get the Steve Peach stories. We don't have them, because all it was just really being there.
Yep.
You know, and then God's Spirit did the rest.
Yeah, so how many transformational moments or divine encounters are we missing simply because we're not willing, or we don't even think about being in those spaces where Christ is not represented and people are not building those relationships. And like you said a moment ago, you know, for Steve Peach, you know, he started a school program, and maybe for his mate to invite him to youth group was a step too far. But to come into youth group and go, gee, this is fun, and there's some youth leaders from a local church, and eventually, you're going to youth on a Friday night? Yeah. Do you want to come? Yep. Goes there, makes a decision to Christ. And so I think what you're saying before, in terms of we can really grieve the fact that we can't go into a school and preach the gospel anymore. And that's one way of looking at it. It's the glass half empty, I guess, and we'd all love to be doing that. But the glass half full is that we're still there and we're still having an impact. And through relationship, it might be a little bit more of a long-term investment. We'll still see those transformational stories as people cross the bridge, as people build relationships, and eventually come to know who Christ is for themselves. So I think that's really encouraging and a great encouragement for anyone who's watching, who's in a local church, you're not in schools at the moment. Organisations like Youth Dimension exist to support you and to help you to take those initial steps and
bridge that gap. That's what we want to help churches do.
Yep. And also providing some of the content, because once you get in there now, what the heck do we do?
That's right. So we've got all the write-ups for you. We actually get all equipment organised for you. We do the training. So the only cost really to a church is what it costs us to get the stuff. You know, so you can think Nerf guns from Kmart, or we do the shopping for you, so you don't have to waste your time. I don't know how many youth pastors I've met, and they're on 1 or 2 days a week, and they're doing another job, and they might be doing some studies somewhere else, and their car is exactly the way you described Foxy's car. It's a complete bombshell.
Yep.
One, they're probably not at the stage of life where they're completely organised, and that hopefully will come in time, and that's no disrespect to youth pastors. I love you all. But the other thing is, if we can structure it up for them and make it easy, that's what we want to do. So that's we take the sting out of that for you, and you can just, you know. So we're at the moment rebuilding our website, and you'll be able to pull up all the games up on your phone on an app, and so you can. It's all ready to go there for you, and it's only look for about. I don't even know what we're charging. It's somewhere in the region of $300 to $400 for a year's worth of programs that you can use at school and youth. And that's our commitment to the church, is to try and make it as easy as possible to make that happen.
Yep. And that's the thing, like youth pastors are often very inexperienced, and particularly in a context outside of the church, like a school. And I think the best part about that is it's like 30 or 40 years of programs that you've been running, that you've seen how they work, and then you're putting that 40 years of experience into the hands of sometimes a young youth pastor or a volunteer that's never been in a school before, and you're saying, these programs actually work. And so here's the resource, we put it in your hands, and you can go run a program like that. And I think that's a real blessing to churches, and I know that's what YD exists for, is to work with churches and to help them to get better at mission. So really encouraging. So if you want to know more, you can jump on the website and look up Youth Dimension and find out more of that sort of stuff. And I'm sure Owen would love to chat to you if you're interested. You're a church out there and you want to know how to connect. I just thought I'd finish quickly with a couple of questions that I didn't send to you. So these are off the cuff, and they've come from our youth leaders that follow.
Yeah, sure.
And there's sort of more coming back to youth group. And a couple of questions. Obviously, you're not the stereotypical youth pastor. You know, you're not 21 with the bombshell of a car. You've got a really nice old Valiant. It's mint, and it's got the Venetian blinds in the back and all that.
Beautiful thing. We could probably do a podcast on that if you wanted.
We could. Yeah. And there'd be 3 or 4 people would be really interested in that. And we could.
So true.
But yeah, and you're a bit older now. Yep. I think Lindsay was guessing about 70. I don't think it's quite that.
I heard that through the wall there, and I thought, he's pretty close.
Yeah. But he's like 10 years older than you, so he must be like 80 or something.
Yeah.
So you're not a young youth pastor anymore, but you've come back now into this space where you're working with youth. And so the question one of our youth leaders had was, what keeps you passionate about working with youth?
I mean, there's the obvious answer. You know, I find doing something like this pushes me into a space of having to behave myself and be serious, but there's a really stupid side to me, and I just love hanging out with young people because they haven't, they're not burdened by all of the things that come along once you've got some kids and you're having to be, sensible, and you've got a mortgage and all that sort of stuff. You kind of get a bit encumbered. So I love being in that space with people who aren't encumbered with all that stuff yet. So personally, I really enjoy teenagers' company. I just think it's fun. I love watching them struggle with what they're struggling with and communicating to them that that's okay. It doesn't really matter what the presenting issue is. I don't care how many different colours you put in your hair and how many, what you've done to yourself and how many rings you've got in your head and all that. I just love people. So that keeps me passionate. And then on the more theoretical side of things, when I do my thinking, when I go on my walks and I'm praying and I'm thinking, well, what is it that God has specifically done in my life and the way He's made me? Why is it that I do keep doing this? And I think the thing for me is there's an obvious one, is that there is no future of the church if we don't invest in young people. It's not that hard to figure out.
Yep. And
I feel like we probably haven't been doing that too well in the last 20 years. There's some exceptions, some really exceptional things going on in the youth space. But for small to medium churches, I've seen a real decline in youth mission and youth ministry. And I'm talking to lots of people about that at the moment, and I'm anecdotally coming up with some reasons for that I don't think are all that genius. I think there's some reasons for that. So that burden keeps me going as well, because I think I know that I really started to walk with the Lord, in my mid-teenage years. It was probably line ball early high school as to whether I'd take this thing on that my parents were really into. But mid to late teens, Jesus just grabbed my heart, you know. Before I was formed into who I am now and all of the cynical stuff that happens to you when you become an adult, there's a lot of space there that the Holy Spirit has to help. And so for me, I think, and there's even studies out there that talk about people coming to faith and when does it happen? Kids and teenagers. So why we're not putting the bulk of our church resource in this is where I get passionate, church. Why we're not putting the bulk of our resource into that baffles me, actually. So I think that's a serious thing that the church needs to address, and I'll keep annoying the church about that until I'm 75.
And you're welcome to annoy us about it as much as you like, mate, but I think you're a real blessing for young people, but also for the church. And the reason for that is that a lot of people see youth ministry as a stepping stone. I'll do my youth ministry role and then I go and become a lead pastor or do something else. But you're showing, no, it doesn't matter what age you are, this is an important area, I'm going to invest in it. And I think the way you're a blessing to the church is not only you're helping church to get into spaces like schools and beach towns for Blue Moose and stuff like that. I think what you're doing is you're creating a space for kids to grow missionally. And sometimes churches, we don't do that well. We create little safe youth groups where all the churchy kids come together, and it's good about
discipleship,
that.
really important.
Absolutely.
Growing in the Word, all that stuff. We have no denying of any of that stuff.
But then when a person who doesn't come to church comes to youth group, or kind of they sit over there and you've got all your clicky groups over here, and we don't do so well at engaging or being excited about someone new coming into a youth space. I think as we get older, we generally get a little bit better at that. We want to engage with all people, and we see someone by themselves, and, hopefully as adults we take more of an effort to go and engage with them. But in youth, that's not great. So I think when you create spaces to help youth get out of the comfortable church setting into a school or a beach mission or whatever it may be, and actually have to share about their faith and connect with people, that's a big part of the discipleship piece that I think sometimes is missing in church youth groups. And you can really work alongside youth groups to have those formative spaces for young people to grow missionally, which I think holds them in good stead as adults.
It absolutely does. When I was doing my theological study and reflection, I did a master's paper on this exact thing, that those people who engage with their faith and then use that outside the four walls of the church are much more likely to still be in church years on. That's the way it works.
Yeah.
If you're not engaging with it and with others about what you believe, then is it really real to you? And so we see people leave the church, and I'm not panicking about the church and the decline of the church in the West. I think there's a lot more to this than meets the eye, and I can see God moving in different ways. But there's no doubt about it that if we don't get our youth engaging with people who don't have the same understanding and mindset and faith as they do, then they're not really wrestling with their own faith.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm seeing an alarming drop-off in youth age kids. They're not connecting with youth group as much as they used to. And I think COVID's probably another thing that's going to accentuate that. So whatever we can do to sort of engage with them, get them involved in living out their faith as part of discipleship is so important. So another question one of our youth leaders asked, how do you balance, okay, so you've got a youth leader, they're working part-time, they might be studying, they want to have their relationship with God going well. They want to have other relationships, might be boyfriend or girlfriend or just friendship circles, and then they're doing youth on top of it. So what would you say to people about how they find a balance in all of that?
Oh boy, that is such a good question because I think we all try and figure that out as we go along. And I have to say there's no cookie cutter example for that for me as I've observed in my own life. And the way that we're built and how much we can actually do is different for different people. So this gets really interesting is for church leaders as the old model was here's a whole bunch of things that I want you to sign up for, and you sign on the dotted line, and then when you break that commitment, we all get upset with you, when really that's a cookie cutter. And so this has to then come back to gift, and it's a lot more messy. So it has to come back to gift and passion and time and what's happening in your life. So coming back to your question, the question of balance, I maybe think that's the wrong question. I look at the life of Jesus and I'm not quite sure if balance is the right word. Maybe seasons. There's lots of different ways to describe how he did his ministry. Yeah. Times of really going for it and times of withdrawing. And spending time in prayer, in big chunks of prayer. There's so many things. Now, whether or not we can apply his life directly as an example to ours, I don't know the correlation. It always works all that cleanly, but there are principles there. What I do know is this in my life. I'll give you my example, and then you take what you want from it. It does come back to call. What is God calling me to? And I tend to now break this down annually almost. I think we all used to do 5-year and 10-year plans. COVID's taught us that, sometimes even a 2-week plan doesn't work too well. So I look at a year and I go, right, okay, my role at Youth Dimension, I've got a certain amount of responsibilities. God's called me to follow, and when God calls you to a church, he also calls you to do ministry in that church. So what is God asking me to do in that? So I'll talk to Luke and some others and find out about that. And then I'll lock in. I'll lock into that commitment. What is God asking of me in terms of family, community, and all of that sort of stuff? So when I do some serious reflection on that in January or whenever it might be, I make some decisions and then I do it.
Yep.
And I think, yes, things happen. It's like, you're driving along in your car and you don't expect that, someone's going to come in and crash into you. So something can happen and it changes your plans. We all understand that.
Yep.
But I think balance might be the wrong way of looking at it. Maybe it's about call and commitment. So what is God calling me to? What do I think that looks like? When I talk to trusted people, my parents and my youth, other youth leaders, my friends, people who I respect, and I say, I'm going to do all of this, and they say, oh, mate, there are only 168 hours in the week, and it looks like you're going for about 240. All right, well, you cut some things out and you reshape it. Yep. You might be in the other boat if you have some honest people in your life and you say, look, I've got a part-time job and I've got this and I've got this, and I've dealt with a lot of young people on this, and I almost, coming from my old man age now, I go, you do know you've got 168 hours in a week. 47 of those you've put onto the PlayStation this week, maybe you've got a bit more time than you think. And so there's a bit of work to do there, a bit of honest self-reflection. So people think they're busy, and I think, well, everyone in the world's got the same amount of time. So that's right. So there might be some things you need to think about.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful. I've often thought of, like, we're always juggling balls, and in some seasons you've got to work at which balls do I let drop to the ground, so I can juggle the ones that are around calling and passion and gifting. And I remember when I was first working as a young adult pastor, I'd always played basketball. I'd run basketball teams forever, and even at my old age, I'm still in a basketball team, when we can get back after COVID. But I remember there was a season when I first started in that pastoral role. I had young kids, a mortgage, a wife, all that sort of stuff, and I was running a fairly major ministry, and in that season I had to let basketball go for a while. I didn't want to. I love basketball. And so for a few years, I didn't play basketball, and then it came to another season where the kids were a little bit older and I had a bit more time again, and I actually realised basketball's a really important physical outlet for me, and so I started playing basketball again in that season, and some other things dropped out. And so I think it's just, I think the annual reassessment's really good to re-look at it and go, okay, what things do I have to drop this year? And sometimes you've got to say no to say yes to the things that are most important. And if you're just saying yes, you'll probably end up doing a million things, not doing any of them well, and burning yourself out. And so, come back to your calling and what is God asking me to do this year? Commit to those, lock into those things, do them well, and then reassess again in 6 months, 12 months. And then, you might have to drop something else and pick something else up. So good advice there, I think. Last question, for all the youth pastors out there, what advice would you give them to connect with kids, both in the youth group and also beyond? We've probably touched on some of this already, but...
Yeah, I think in the current climate, I think the next 6 months are going to be critical in reconnecting with your core Christian kids. You need to do a foxy there, do a lot of time. There's going to be a lot of time spent in just relational, hangouts, whatever it might be. Just let them know that they're important again. Speak into their lives where you can. I just think the opportunities are there as we come out of this, this lockdown restriction type of environment we've been in. There's going to be some opportunities, and they're going to be more well received than normal. I mean, I know from experience, as do all youth leaders, you do your weekly phone calls to your Year 7 boy, and what do you get? So how'd you go in basketball this week? Good. Tell me about it. Oh, it went well. Okay.
What else you been doing? Not much. How's school? Yeah, it's all right.
Yeah,
school.
I hate it.
Yeah.
Why do you hate it? Oh, it just sucks. So it can be really hard. But I'm telling you, I really believe that coming out of COVID, you're going to get more out of them.
Yeah. So
this is a critical time to reconnect and really encourage and disciple and do all of that stuff. So if you're a youth leader, get your game face on. Do it. Get involved and prioritise that if you can above just about anything else.
Yeah.
And then, I'm always going to bug you about this. Get into your community. Find out what's going on in your local school. Let it become something that is on your mind. Let it revisit in your mind in your quiet times. How best can I connect with the kids in my community?
Yep.
And I would be extremely surprised if you get a heap of knockbacks if you're asking the right questions at schools.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. Well, that's really great, Owen. I think some really helpful stuff in there about connecting with schools and youth in general. So next episode, we're going to talk a little bit about evangelism and how that's changed over the years and what Blue Moose is all about. So if you don't know what Blue Moose is, come and you can check that out in the next episode. But to all of you watching, really thank you for joining us today. I hope you found the content to be really helpful. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you give us a like and a review. And if you're listening to the Apple Podcast, give us a 5-star review, write some comments, and please share about it so that other people can engage with the content, and hopefully it'll be helpful for them as well. And so until the next episode, thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk again soon.